people live in separate realities, meaning that two people can experience the same thing two different ways and they can both still be true. Nobody's wrong.
That's right.
But we acknowledge that the lens are different and that the experience and impact is different. So I think when we lead from that perspective, it automatically clicks in my mind that I need to be clear and clarify to make sure that it lands well and that the impact is what I intended to be.
Welcome back to another episode. As always, I'm always grateful to be here as your host because I know that without you all, there is no podcast. And I'm always also so grateful to be with the various guests that I have. I'm gonna tell you, one of the things I love about podcasting is I get to meet incredibly cool people. And these are people that they're not in the same city as me. They're sometimes not in the same country as me. And I would never have met them had it been for these lovely platforms like LinkedIn. And so this guest that I have today, this brother, he's a brother colleague of mine. And I feel like he's kin. I mean, from the moment we connected, it was like we were seeing eye to eye, speaking the same language. Absolutely. And so I am so excited to have Dr. Shaq Anthony on with me. He's a talent, culture, and engagement strategist and the owner of S. Anthony Solutions. He's a chief culture officer. And he's just an all-around good dude. And so thank you so much, Dr. Shaq, for coming on and sharing this time with me. We're going to be talking about what it feels like to be on the other side of the communication, right? So I like my audiences to get to know my guests before we dive in. So just formally introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your story and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, no, for sure. Shout out to you, Dr. Claiborne. I echo the same sentiments. Currently I work for Corewell Health, which is Michigan's largest healthcare system, and I'm a lead organizational development specialist there, where I help to lead the strategy for organizational culture for the entire enterprise. So that's East, West, South, and Priority Health. We own the plan side as well. And so I've been doing that for about a year and a half, but I did also start my own consulting company called S. Anthony Solutions, really focused on culture engagement, talent piece as well. Serve as the chief culture officer. Born and bred in Muskegon Heights, Michigan. I know some of y'all probably don't know what that is, right? Because when you say Michigan, the first thing people say is Detroit.
Right.
But west side of the state, born and raised, went to school at Western Michigan University for my undergrad, got my bachelor's degree in in HR, and then got my master's in organizational leadership from Cornerstone University here in Grand Rapids. And then I got my doctorate degree as well in organizational leadership and development at Cornerstone as well. My thesis was called The Cost of Getting Ahead, Understanding Why African Americans Do Not Participate in Workforce Development Programs.
Ooh, nice.
Pretty cool.
That is cool. It's so funny. I didn't know that part. See, this is the other thing I like about podcasting is because, we get in and I'm not like you've noticed about me. I'm not like a super small talk person. So when I connect with people and we connect, we just go deep. We just dive deep. And that's exactly what we did. But I did not know that was your thesis because that's deep.
It was an interesting time in my life.
I bet it was.
but it was good. Really, really heard a lot. And, the purpose of that research was for me to try to help inform policymakers, administrators, and decision makers on how to be more intentional about building workforce development programs that are inclusive and accessible to all people, right? I think for years, workforce development has had a kind of status quo. And so how do we build more all-encompassing, holistic workforce development programs that really allow people to get ahead and to take advantage of, higher paying job opportunities, which leads to better quality of life, which leads to better family dynamics, etc. So talked about the whole ecosystem of the family and all that good stuff. So it was really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't often, from an organizational standpoint, I feel like they don't often take into account the entire ecosystem and take that holistic approach. And And so I love sort of like that is your purview. That's where
Yeah.
you come from, right? Because it makes such a difference in how you interact with the leaders in the organization where you are that you're leading, and the consulting that you do is that you bring that holistic perspective. It's really cool. So I have to disclose to my listeners why the topic is what it is. We were in our first conversation, and this is one of the things that just had me go woo. Like woo.
Yeah.
You were just telling me a story, and you shared that you said to a leader, what does it feel like to be on the other side of you?
Yeah.
Speaking about communication, like what does it feel like to be on the other side of you? And that just like it just dropped, just like hit my soul, because that's a lot of the work that I do as well, is like this communication work and having people get that their communication has an impact
Yeah.
on others, whether it's verbal or nonverbal
Mhm.
communication. Their actions and behaviors and way of being have an impact on other people. And so this is so important in leadership. And I'd love to know, like, sort of just like, and maybe this brings in the leadership,
Yeah.
the leadership piece. So yeah, I'd love to hear how that came up for you. Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, it comes from, right, me, number one, being intentional about my own leadership journey and really setting the tone around leadership, because I think sometimes we look at leadership a certain way through a
Yes.
skewed lens, if you ask me,
Mhm.
because everybody's a leader. And if you say, well, Shaq, how can everybody be a leader and they don't have self direct reports?
Mhm.
Well, first of all, you're the leader of yourself, right? That's
Oof.
one of the highest levels of leadership, is being able to lead yourself. I
Mhm.
can't lead anyone until you lead yourself and you build those disciplines in yourself. So just being very introspective about my own journey and how people experience me,
Mhm.
that has become a question that I think has just stuck with me as well.
Mhm.
I've also seen it in a book before. I've
Mhm.
also shout out to Ryan Leake. He is a major author and speaker who's taken the world by storm. But that's where that question kind of came from. And it's really intended to prioritize the mirrors in your life so that they can tell you what it feels like, because
Mhm.
we can't see ourselves. So,
Mhm.
we go about thinking that we're actually killing it and we're leading well, we're doing all of the things. But the truth is, sometimes we are a little more, I would say we rate ourselves higher than what we should. So
Yes.
when we turn that mirror and we ask that question, hey, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? Or you're in leadership coaching and development or whatever your career is, you
Mhm.
ask that question. What it does is intentionally turn the mirror so that leaders, you yourself, have an opportunity to look introspectively,
Mhm.
listen, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know. And assuming positive intent is key,
Yeah.
because again, we don't think anybody ever just wants to hurt anybody or be malicious.
Mhm.
But you walk away with so much insight and information that is game changing to your leadership journey. I think it is a very, very great gift. But it's a very small, powerful question,
Yes.
because, we don't always know. And what I love about the question is it doesn't just apply at work. What does it feel like to be on the other side of you,
Listen. See,
as your husband, spouse, partner, right? Cousin, auntie,
that's
right?
right.
Uncle,
Child.
child. Yeah.
Child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to be very, very, very transparent,
Yeah.
this question transformed my dichotomy around how I raised my daughter. I'm raising a little girl, and it helped me be more intentional with her. I am younger, so I'm grinding out, trying to build the best life for her, trying to operate in excellence and strive for success. And one day it clicked for me. She doesn't see all of that. She just sees her dad. And
That's
so
right.
I'm quick to put my phone down. I'm quick to close my laptop. I'm quick to,
Mhm.
give her my undivided attention. And then, of course, right, I'm married. I'm a newlywed. So it's the
Mhm.
same thing when my wife needs to have a conversation. Like,
Mhm.
I'm constantly asking myself, like, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me, right? Like,
Mhm.
even down to stuff like, it was funny. It's a joke. We got this running joke in my house. I freeze my candy, like gummy worms, Sour Patch Kids. I freeze them. Don't knock it till you try it. Now that's the truth. Don't knock it till you try it. Trust me, it's a,
No, I'm sure. I'm sure it's my
it's
son likes frozen everything. So
a fact, and it's a joke that, like, I don't share. So I'll have 3 bags of Sour Patch Kids in the freezer, and I probably won't eat them for months. And so the running joke is, my wife would be like, "Well, can I have some?" I was like, "No, you can't." But me being intentional, I was like, "Man, that come off so selfish." Like, it's Sour Patch Kids. Like, yes, you can have some, right?
Right, right.
So even with that, like, that's how powerful the question is. With
Mhm.
little stuff that probably is like, "Oh, that doesn't matter," but it really does, right?
Yes.
Because now I'm thinking about that experience from multiple different lenses.
You went exactly where I was going. I say how you do anything is how you do everything. So
Yes.
we may be talking from the boardroom to the kitchen to the living room. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so I love that you brought that in. That it's not just for work, but like what is like I think about this often with my son and how it shows up for me is like I do push him. We do chores every day, chores. I got him reading books about communication and empathy and his
Yeah.
feelings. But one of the things that I remember about my upbringing is there were two things. There was not a lot of praise and there was not a lot of apology. I wouldn't say praise, I would say acknowledgement,
Yep.
right? Because there's a difference, right? And so, like the other day, actually yesterday, I was washed clothes, and one of the things I'm now teaching him is folding clothes because he does a lot of chores. He sweeps the floors, and we clean up together. But I had to go and pick up the groceries down the street, and I said, okay, will you fold these towels? He's like, I don't know how to fold the towels. I was like, you know how to fold the towels, and if you don't, I want you to figure it out.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm giving him that autonomy to play and figure it out, to know that he has the capacity. So when I get home and the towels are folded and I say thank you. And then he goes to get in the shower. And I think to myself, I need to acknowledge the work that he did, like specifically. So I said, you know, you folded those towels perfectly.
Mhm.
And then he says, well, mom, nothing is perfect. So maybe I folded them. He said, goodily. And I said, well, how about excellently? He's like, yeah, excellently. I said, well, you folded those towels excellently. So that he could feel proud about the work that he did and knowing that he did that. He did that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like that kind of thing, like, okay, what is it? And that's sort of like not in those exact terms, but that's what I was thinking, like, okay, what is his experience
Yes.
in this
Yes.
dynamic? Like,
And
he can't experience me only criticizing or only trying to telling him what he can improve on. He also needs to experience what he is doing well, because
yeah.
that's a motivator, you
Yes.
know? And
Yes.
so, yeah, I love that. And here's something else you said that really, like, to me, it just like hit. You are the leader of yourself.
Yeah.
I just had to repeat that. Like, we
Yeah.
are the leader of ourself, and people think they don't have. I'm not a leader. I don't know, how am I a leader? No, you are the leader of yourself, of your mind, of your behavior,
Yeah.
of your choices. And so I love, and it speaks to intent versus impact.
Yes. And I think the sooner we help people realize that, we'll start to see a difference in decision making, right? We'll start to see a difference in ownership of
Mhm.
life and
Yes.
those experiences. And I often think about, right? And this is just a weird binge I go on. I think about like K through 12 education. And I'm like,
Mhm.
man, I wonder what it would feel like to have a curriculum rooted, of course, math, science,
Mhm.
all the stuff, right?
Mhm.
History, geography,
Mhm.
yes. But a curriculum rooted in leadership. Can you imagine
Mm.
a kindergartner by the
Mhm.
time they get to third grade and all that their whole curriculum has been rooted in leadership, so they understand their
Mm.
identity, decision making, they
Yeah.
understand that they're the leader of themselves and they have control over their emotions, right? You think about the diagnosis rates of like ADHD, right? And all of these things where it's like, oh, I just don't have control. No, you do, right? We can
Yeah.
create those environments
That's right.
to help people excel. So that's the other part of like the whole leading yourself. Like, you're
Mhm.
the leader of yourself, and when you become a great leader of yourself, when you become competent in being game, you garner that license to lead other people. But it
Yes.
starts with you. You know what I'm saying? And you are your first case study. You know what I'm saying?
It really does. Yeah.
And usually those who can't lead themselves well cannot lead other people. So you have to be able to lead yourself, take ownership, acknowledge, and I resonate with what you said. And see, you talked about it, that acknowledgement, or in that criticism piece. In my family dynamic, we just didn't have conversation in general, right? So stuff was just kind of like swept under the rug, or it was just kind of like, oh, we're just gonna act like it didn't happen, right? And so even with that
Mhm.
experience, we don't think about that. And I often catch myself as a parent, like not creating space when I don't create space for conversation, or like when my daughter will jump into her curiosity and say, well, Dad, why is that like that? And I catch myself because sometimes I'll just give her a quick answer. Well, Vay, it's like that because of this, right?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I got to stop that. No, like, you're curious,
Yes.
thinking about her experience. Let me create space for your curiosity because this is a learning moment for you.
Mhm.
That's what it feels like. That's why that question is so powerful. That's what it
Mhm.
feels like to be on the other side of me. Am I creating space for your curiosity so you can learn and grow? Or am I shutting that down unknowingly? Right?
Mhm.
Unknowingly, like not even being cognizant that that could be the very thing that makes you stop asking questions, and that might affect you in the long run, right? So I want to always be cognizant of that and create that space for just intentional conversation and engagement for sure.
Yes, yes. I want to oh, there's you said so many things. I'm going to bring it back to I want to bring it back because you did mention this, and I want to bring it back to this sort of intent versus impact,
Mhm.
because you said, we think we are leading well, or we think we are having a certain impact, and other people are like, well, well, actually. And so I think it's powerful. You brought, sort of at the beginning, that question to ask other people, like, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? And what I wonder, and just to come back for a second to intent versus impact for people who may not sort of get the full context of that, is that, we judge ourselves on intention, what we mean to do. So like intentions, like, and I've been actually having this conversation with my son, intention versus impact. Like
Yeah,
intention is what you thought you were doing, what you meant to do, what you intended to do. And impact is the effect that it actually had on another person.
yeah,
And sometimes the two don't match up.
they don't.
And so, we have to tend to, number one, we have to clarify that how did that land? How did it land in the way that I intended it to land?
Mhm.
This is the way I intended it to land, right? And then, so we have to ask that question. And then if the impact is not what you intended, you tend to the impact, not to the intention,
Right.
right? Because that's what everybody, well, I didn't mean to. That's the famous last words. I didn't mean to. That's not what I meant. Nobody cares what
Yeah.
you meant.
I felt what I felt.
Yeah, because I felt what I felt. It's not that intention doesn't matter at all, but it doesn't until the impact is acknowledged.
Yes.
And I think that's so important, which is why what you said in the very beginning, which is asking that question
Hmm.
of others. And I wonder, and maybe you have some insight on this, like in an organization, because I mean, we could be at the dinner table with our family and say, I
Yeah.
want to know, what is it like to be you and on the other side of me? Like,
Yeah.
we can cultivate that conversations in our homes. And I invite, like, look, listeners, consider this homework, because I like to give it.
I love that.
You know,
Yeah.
I invite you to go into your homes at the dinner table with your spouse, with your kids, and ask that question. What does it feel like? When things, not when you're in the middle of conflict, but like when things are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious. I heard this podcast. You can scapegoat me. I'm cool. I heard this podcast and they say I should ask this question, and I'm just curious. What does it feel like to be on the other side of interacting with me?
Yeah.
How do you cultivate that in an organization, though?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's a great question. I think it all starts too with understanding that people live in separate realities, right? And understanding that two things can be
Yes.
true at the
Hmm.
same time, right? And
That
so when
part.
you understand and assume positive intent and understand that people live in separate realities, meaning that two people can experience the same thing two different ways, right? And they can both still be true, right? Nobody's
Absolutely.
wrong.
That's
But
right.
we acknowledge, right, that the lens are different and
Mm-hmm.
that the experience and impact is different. So I think when we lead from that perspective and that
Mm-hmm.
ideology of, hey, I know we live in separate realities, it automatically clicks in my mind that I need to be clear and clarify to make sure that it lands well and that the impact is what I intended to be, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
how you cultivate that in an organization is, I think you really build this framework around awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we can become so robotic and get in the, just the routine of doing, this is what I do every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's bringing it back to awareness, this framework of awareness, this framework around awareness and action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then adjustment, right? And then what that looks like leading to experience. So
Yes.
awareness is being able to say, hey, let's make sure that we're aware of what we say, how we behave, how we show up, right?
Yeah.
And how that affects how we act, the actions that we take. But then also being willing to adjust, right, depending on that feedback, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think another great way to embed this in organizations is to create an environment of feedback. It is a gift. I think we need to take the negativity out of it and really see it for what it is.
Yeah.
Feedback is a gift, right? Yes, there can be times where we give feedback at the wrong time, right? You probably don't want to ask me my feedback when I'm already irritated or when somebody done already cut me off on the highway. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Probably don't want my feedback then. But
Right.
feedback is truly a gem, right? And when you create that environment of feedback, it again turns the mirror and allows that person to adjust.
Yeah.
Because when we don't turn the mirror and we don't use feedback, we're basically cutting ourselves off at the knee. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh no, I got it, but you really don't. And that feedback gives you an opportunity to become a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
So really creating awareness, the framework around awareness, really making sure that we create space for feedback, which then leads to adjustment. And
Mm-hmm.
that again affects experience. But until we debunk the myth around feedback and
Mm-hmm.
what it really is, I
Mm-hmm.
think it'll be hard for us. And I think there are ways to give feedback that help, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, here's what I appreciate about you, Dr. Claiborne,
Mm-hmm.
right? Here's what I appreciate about you. Here's also what I think that you could do to be even more effective.
Yes.
The language, right? It
Yep. Feedback
assumes,
sandwich.
it assumes that you are already effective,
Mm-hmm.
right? And here's what I see that can make you even more effective than
Right.
you already are.
Take to
Because
the next
I'm not
level.
interested in tearing you down.
That's
I'm not
right.
interested in killing you, right?
That's right.
I'm interested in seeing you go to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You're good. Let's go to great. Then let's go to
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always more. So I think that's how you kind of start to embed that in organizations and create that environment where everybody can thrive and everybody can grow.
I love that. I love that you brought in the teaching people how to give feedback, because I think oftentimes that's a miss. I mean, it's like, you create a culture where feedback is a gem, but if people don't know how to give feedback, they can give it in a very harmful way.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated that. Even that demonstration in the moment was just that's a gift and we have to reframe. Now, here's the other piece that I'm going to bring into it that I think that, underlies that is when we have to cultivate a culture where people trust each other and feel safe, right? So when we talk about safe, and in particular talk about psychological safety, and we talk about those four elements. I mean, you mentioned a few of them already, like the inclusion. People have to feel included. They feel like their voice matters, right? That's contribution. People have to feel like they're safe to make mistakes, right? Because when we make mistakes, guess what we can do? We can clean up those mistakes. But if there's
Remember
an
that?
environment where there's no room for mistakes, then they're paralyzed to even try, right? When they feel like their voice doesn't matter, they feel like they can't contribute that feedback. And when you don't create a culture where there's challenger safety,
Mhm.
that is the safety to be able to say when there's something that's not so great,
Yeah.
something to make things better. That's part of that feedback. When we don't create an environment where feedback, whether it's positive feedback or whether it's feedback to improve, we don't create a culture where that is at the forefront or embedded inside of the individual interactions and modeled by leadership, then it makes it very difficult to give that feedback, right? So I really love that you brought that.
Yeah, I love that, right? So I was at a conference recently and they said something that I literally jumped out of my seat on. And it was a one-liner. It was quick. I mean, it was like real quick, but it was like a gut punch. And they said, trust is the universal currency.
Mm.
I said, here, okay?
Right, right.
When,
That part.
and when you think about it, right, trust is that on ramp to success. It is the catalyst, right? And if I don't trust that you have my best interest at heart,
Yes.
of course it's gonna be hard to give me feedback.
Right.
Of course, it's gonna be hard to turn the mirror. Of course, right? Those working relationships and those dichotomies will break down because of the lack of trust. And I think right now we're entering a time where, psychological safety and the war on DEI and all of these different conversations, right? And I think one of the things that I've walked away with and that I kind of how I view it all is no matter what you call DEI, if you change the name, if whatever, right?
Right.
No matter what you do regarding the work, no matter what, how your organization is trying to build culture, whatever, right? At the underlying all of that, right? The foundational element in peace is trust.
Absolutely.
And if you don't understand that, it will be hard to get anything off the ground. Most people spend more time with their teams and their counterparts and colleagues than they do their families.
That's
so
right.
if I'm working with you every day, yes, I have to trust you. And if there's not trust, then there's no wonder we don't hit our metrics, right? Another one-liner that they dropped at the conference, which shook me, was they just said it out loud. They said, hey, culture drives performance, not the other way around.
Ooh, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I said, who these one-liners? Okay.
I know, right?
But again, just think again, under all of that is trust.
Absolutely.
And we have to be intentional about building trusting environments where people feel safe to, like you said, speak up, share thoughts without shame of feeling like they will be retaliated against or talked about because of whatever, right? And so I think there's a lot to be said about that trust piece. And to be honest, I don't think we spend enough time talking about it. And then the number one question then becomes, well, how do you build trust? How do you?
Yes. Look, that's a whole nother podcast.
It's a whole nother podcast. Okay. It's a whole nother podcast. Whole nother podcast. But
yes.
Those are, I'm glad we double clicked on that, because I think the more that organizations understand and really kind of wrap their hearts and minds around trust, they'll start to see a level of acceleration that they haven't before.
Well, you just gave us a part 2, right? You just gave us a part 2. You heard it here first. Part 2. How do you build trust? How do you do it? And it's what's really great is that we talk about like this building trust in organizations, but we have to build trust everywhere, right? On our teams and in organizations, in our families, in our communities, with our children, with our spouses, with our siblings, with our parents, right? Because in any relationship, if one does not trust the other, they will not express ideas. They will not challenge ideas if they don't feel safe to do that, right? They will not find their own leadership, right? There will be no collaboration. There will be no, like the culture. We talk about culture in organizations, but the culture of family dynamics will be toxic.
It will be toxic
and traumatic. Let's talk about the trauma that happens in organizations. But look, I'm not going to start a whole nother conversation, right? Because we could talk about trust.
That's part 3.
That's part 3. The trauma in organizations because of the chronic toxic culture and stress and feeling of always having to look over one's shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it cripples more organization and more people than we acknowledge.
Yes.
It brings me to another quote where they said, "A person who doesn't listen finds themselves surrounded by people who have nothing to say."
Ooh, say it again. Say it again.
So a person who doesn't listen soon finds themselves surrounded by people who have nothing to say.
Wow, that's a mic dropper right there.
Mic dropper. And I remember when I first heard the quote, it was like, "Ooh," because when you think about it, a part of building trust is feeling heard, feeling
Yes,
seen, feeling valued.
that's right.
But if you don't listen, and let's again, not trying to come up with another podcast, but even when it comes to listening, it's not enough just to listen. What is the action orientation behind the listening, right? Because I can tell you something and I can say, "Hey, Dr. Claiborne, here's what I'm dealing with, and I need you to fix this." And you're like, "Oh, I hear you." By the third time you say "I hear you," and I'm still looking at my circumstance and situation and it's the
That's right.
same, there
That's
is
right.
no trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I spoke up, and that's what I need leaders to understand. When people give you the gift of feedback or give you the gift of whatever is a distraction or something that's causing them angst,
Mm-hmm.
they're giving trust up front,
Yeah.
believe that you will do something about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so you got to think people are already giving trust when they speak up and say what it is that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So it's not
And they're taking a risk too.
taking a risk, because the truth is, I don't know that you will even be able to do something about it or if you care enough to do something about it. But I know that in order to get trust, I got to give it. So
That's
I'm
right.
going to give you this trust up front.
Mm-hmm.
My desire is, and I'm not just talking to talk, my
Right.
hope is that you take what I gave you
Mm-hmm.
and then you do something about it. And that's how you build trust, because it's like, "Oh no, Dr. Claiborne didn't just listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
You actually did something about what I told you.
Mm-hmm.
And I value that. I
Mm-hmm.
value, you know, that." And then next thing you know, that lets me know that not only that you see me, you hear me, but you value me. So
Mm-hmm.
now that I know that you value me, now we're building trust, and that thing is like a snowball effect. And
That's
that,
right.
right, and we're moving. And I think we have to also pay attention to that aspect of it as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
because people are giving trust up top when they say something. That's
Mm-hmm.
trust. Like
It is.
I'm not just talking to talk,
That's
right?
right.
Like there's something about you that made me want to tell you what I'm dealing with.
That's
So
right.
you know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
That initial trust, but I think sometimes we don't see it that way.
Yeah.
See it as, "Oh, that's trust." No, that's a form of trust. If I'm going out of my way and telling you what I need help with or what I'm dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
offering that trust up front. How you get that trust back is what you do with what I told
That's right.
you, right?
Man. Look,
Crazy.
okay, we got a part two. We got a part two. We're talking about how to build trust. That's it. It's
Yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah.
I love
It's
it.
done.
I love it. Well, I always like to kind of wrap. This is a great pause point. I have to wrap it up though, because what do you feel like? To got this, we've talked about so much. What do you want if they were to take if the audience was to take away one thing? And I've already given them some homework. If they were talking about they were taking about take away one thing, what would you have them take away about what it feels like to be on the other side of them?
Ooh.
I know, right? Sorry, I just put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's a really, really loaded question. I guess one thing I would say, if you heard nothing else we said, or if you needed that one thing to take away, is just be become aware that the way people experience you is directly connected to the impact that you have on their lives and the impact that you will have in your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And so just be aware and cognizant of the experience people have with you, and if you know you're not having a good day, or if you know, right, like things are off, be open enough. A second, I need a moment. But really, when you think about this question, understand this is not just about leading people. I mean, it is, because it affects people, but
Right.
it's really more internal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have that in, strengthen your internal compass, knowing where you are, right? And how you show up. I would say that's the one thing. Just become aware of that. That experience is directly connected to that impact that you will have in your lifetime and the impact that you will have on others around you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a direct connection to your self leadership as well as the leadership of other people. You know what I'm saying? If you
Absolutely.
can become aware of that and just be cognizant, it'll shift it again internally. That awareness will it becomes an internal clock. It's just like, oh, let me catch that. Oh, let me, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a witness of it. I've
Yeah.
experienced I've experienced it. It's an internal thing. I mean, that's like, ooh, before I respond, what does that feel like? All right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that type of awareness has changed my life and my leadership.
Thank you for that. I'm going to just piggyback on that just to say, and be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
If you become aware of the impact that you're having, whether someone trusts you enough to tell you or to answer the question honestly, be willing to do the work. Because sometimes people just be like, well, guess it's
This
just
is
who
who I
I
am.
am. Oh, the fixedness of that mindset.
Ooh, that's a whole nother
Yeah,
conversation. It's a whole nother
it
conversation.
really is. Look, the fixedness. For we got three. We definitely got 3 episodes. The growth fixed versus growth mindset and leadership. Oh, okay. I got to write these down. So before we go, look, we can talk
Yeah.
2 weeks till Sunday, and we got to go. We both got to actually work, and so I want people to know where they can find you if they want to have you
Yeah.
speak or consult or
Yeah.
just follow you on social media. Where's the best place for them to find you?
Oh yeah. So Facebook is Shaq Anthony. Instagram is I am Dr. Shaq Anthony. I just took my old website down, so I'm doing a complete rebrand right now. So that will be the website will more than likely be I am Dr. Anthony.com, but I'll let you all know when it's up. I'll make a big post about it. But doing a complete rebrand with that. But Facebook and IG, if you want to email me about consulting or things like that, Dr. Shaq Anthony at gmail.com. So that's DRSHAQ ANTHONY is how you can get in touch with me. And yeah, we can work together and build this culture thing.
That's what I'm talking about. I love it. And we will make sure we have all of that in the show notes. So you heard it here. Go get in the show notes. We're going to have all of Dr. Shaq's information, and stay tuned because you already know we said it here. He will come back. He will be a
Yes.
recurring guest host, and we will have some more of these conversations. But also, of course, I always like to thank my audience for listening because without the audience, there is no podcast. So, what I'd like for you to do is take this conversation and share it. Share it with a friend, with a colleague, with a family member, with a leader in your organization or community, because we need these types of dialogues replicating and rippling in our communities. So share the episode and leave a review. Leave a review for the podcast on whichever your favorite podcast platform is, because what it lets us know is that we are bringing the conversations you want, but it also lets the people who come behind you know that we are having very important, impactful conversations. So just remember to do that when you get a chance. We greatly appreciate it. So, Dr. Shaq, you are the bomb.com.
No,
Thank you
that,
for this conversation. I so appreciate you.
thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. So go out there and have these conversations, take what we said and apply them, because this is not just about us blowing air out of our lungs. It's about us making a difference. And until the next time we see you, stay empowered.